if we're going to be able to beat the intensity of a map 5 reverse sweep round 11, but we'll sure give it a try. Am I hold shift with proper? And honestly speaking, as much as I would love to say that we can go 1-for-1 with that last matchup, this definitely has the potential of being a pretty exciting series. Boise State now going up against Crimson Gaming from the University of Utah. And proper, the biggest storyline here, I think, generally speaking, before we jump in, this Boise State team not only showed character and promise last year, they're returning with their full 4 again this year to hopefully kind of make some corrections to a couple of slip-ups that they had throughout the regular season and then into the playoffs in the Cold War year.
Yeah, if you did not watch anything to do with Boise State just last season, they made a midseason adjustment. They brought in McDowdy. McDowdy is here to stay. This is their main fourth, and we want to be able to see them come into their own. This is going to be quite telling for themselves, especially because earlier today, they ended up losing their first match versus New Mexico State University. But going up against Crimson Gaming here, Alan, again, it's going to be a pretty tough matchup for a lot of different reasons for us to be able to witness what this four-player roster has to offer us.
Exactly the case. We'll look at the head-to-head comparison here. Obviously, it's week 1. Not a lot of statistics to go off of as of yet, outside of kind of the known quantities that Boise State is coming off of a loss to New Mexico State. We talked about a couple of maybe slip-ups that they had to miss out on the top cut and potentially miss out on getting a more secured playoff spot. One of those losses was the New Mexico State last year. However, on the other side for Utah, they only played a couple of games. The season wasn't going all that well. They had a couple of issues getting the roster that they wanted, and they ended up kind of forfeiting through the season. So you have to kind of hope that for Utah that those corrections have been made and they're ready to give this season a true go. But we look at Boise State's roster here. The biggest thing, like you had mentioned, all 4 coming back. The core 3 of this team, though, between Practica, Hat-Trick, and Perp, they were great all year long. There was a swap halfway through the year. McDowdy jumps in, and, you know, there is some left to be desired aspects to how we finish off the year.
Yeah, there really was. I mean, given how little lack of practice going into their second split matches, again, going to my point earlier, this is going to be quite telling for themselves because if there's one thing that we do remember for Boise State is that their search and destroy is nasty. It's something that they can absolutely rely on. Practical is that guy, has a 1.81 overall search and destroy KDA coming off the Cold War season, Alan.
You have to remember that this is actually a matchup that for Utah, as we look back at their roster as well, they did actually play this head-to-head match last year. It was a 3-0, though, favoring Boise State. Although that said, you know, some of the considerations for Utah's roster was that they were going to be super slay-heavy with the roster that they wanted, and they still kept the hard point relatively close in the head-to-head matchup. But looking at what the roster has to offer now going into this year, they don't have Mike back in the mix, at least from what we were able to tell, but they're able to at least hold on to Matt. And Matt was, I think, you know, supposed to be the lightning to Mike's thunder, but the biggest thing was they had to kind of hold hands with the 2 players that had got brought in last year. So now you're looking at Quinn, Justin, and J-Mac that are in the mix, and you have to hope that for Matt's sake, this is more closely representative of the roster that he wants to play with this year.
And it's legitimately just that. Is this the roster that Utah wanted? Is this going to be ideal for them going forward for the rest of the season? Is this going to be the slay-heavy roster that we were expecting to come through last season, but never really got? We expect for Utah to be able to show us what the entire college has to offer. And now with the leader being J-Mac, is this going to be the captain that we need to be able to lead this so-called slay-heavy team to success for the entirety of College COD 22?
And the thing about it is we would have loved to have at least gotten some sort of an instance to how did Utah fare in their opening matchup versus Keanu. They didn't actually play it. It got rescheduled. So we're getting ourselves a fresh look from minute number 1 for this Utah team, the Crimson Gaming Squad. Taking a look at the roster, the maps that we're going to have here for this series and where we're going to kind of learn about this Crimson Gaming team. It starts on a Berlin hardpoint and then follows up with the Tuscan Search and Destroy. We've seen a lot of that here today. But then, like we had continued to mention, just going to hit it one more time, with Control not currently being in the CDL rule set, at least not in a playable form. The third mode will be hardpoint as well. So we'll get Gava for that, and then over to Bacage if we need it, and we'll cap things off with the Berlin Search and Destroy. The thing about it, and what we were talking about proper at the very top of everything going into this series at the beginning of the day today was, hey, is Hardpoint going to tell the tale about what this Utah team has to offer for us this year? And we're going to get a look potentially at 3 very different hardpoint maps to maybe give us that narrative building here in this first series for him.
I swear, we spend way too much time with one another. You're almost in my brain. That's exactly where I was going to
welcome.
go. I hope this at least goes to map number 4, Alan, because this is exactly what we want to see from 2 teams that we are raising a lot of questions with. We didn't actually get to see that loss versus New Mexico State University, but if it goes to Bocage, we get to bear witness to what both teams are going to look like when the flex player has to pull out that third AR. What we're going to see if you have to go to 3, maybe 4 MP40s if we go to Bocage, and how teams get to adjust to one another on that Tuscan Search and Destroy. We're going to get a Car 98K? Are we going to end up seeing just everybody bull rush towards one another? All of these answers are going to be answered and then some throughout this best of 5.
It'll be an interesting test because, man, you look at the core 3 that Boise State brings to the mix, and even regarding the loss that they're coming off of, you still are dealing with 3 players that carried near or above a 1.5 KD in hardpoint last year, that being Hattrick, Practica, and Perp. So, yeah, it's an interesting test here for Utah off the rip, and I think for Boise State, after now knowing that they've lost to New Mexico State in their opening matchup, you got to remember that these regions split into the 4 different divisions will then be restructured halfway through the year, where only the top 3 will make it into the top echelon of what the CCL will look like this year. So a very poor loss here for Boise State if they want to try to make their way into the top cut, because all we really learned about from last year was, outside of a couple of missteps versus teams that they thought they should win, the bottom cut, they're just better than. I mean, when they got to that bottom cut last year, they went 6-0 and barely dropped maps. So you got to win when it matters most, and it feels like early on for Boise State, this would be one of those matches that, after you're coming off of a loss, you have to beat Utah here.
Will be the Crimson Gaming starting off on, I guess, the favorite side of the map. You get to cut across that open courtyard and get a good look at what Boise State are going to be running into, and it's Justin that opens things off onto O. They're going to end up hitting this very quick flank through the doorway, and well, now they're going to have a great look at probably some more, but great trade away is going to be coming through from Perp, and if you're Boise State going forward with 20 seconds remaining, you just want to keep it contested. You don't want anybody, especially Crimson Gaming, to get too comfortable with all the time that is allotted on P1.
Yeah, really good stuff for Utah off the rip. Kill feed, obviously, very much so favored, although there's not a lot of engagement really to truly speak of. So we turn our attention over to the to New, and J-Mac will clear out the open wet dock side, and into the point, Justin's able to find his way to get to the initial setup for Mail. So really good textbook rotational play here from Crimson Gaming thus far. Boise State on the break from the front, looking good for it as McDowdy talked about how Boise State, you need a good participation from him. He's got a 3-1 start with 3 in a row.
Yeah, they have potential to play for streaks if they can get to number 5. The break is already in for Boise State, but how's the setup going to be looking? Because J-Mac was in a very powerful position to be able to cut a lot of players off cross, but they were getting suppressive fire all the way through. Crimson Gaming now trying to rally themselves back through the middle of the map. Pinstripe kill feed might be favorable for the time being, but we're just battling for scrap time. And if you end up going down here for Crimson Gaming, you can see where they're spawning. It's Boise State with the scrap time ensuing for themselves. Also have the close spawns of the rotation for 3.
Yeah, nice little bounce back off that break attempt. Quinny, love this play, though. Why not try to just send your life over and contest the scrap time? He actually wins a free gunfight, and with that earns an extra 10 seconds. So good stuff. And for Utah, they're also still on rotation to try to fight through fire. Justin through 2 in that aforementioned area will be able to kind of set up a attempt to breach and break. Perp watching the wrong door at the moment. He's going to realize that quickly as his teammates are following around him. Him and Practical are the only 2 members left standing. And as the spawns are still good for Boise State, the time continues to be contested to the pistol. Perp denied. And with that, Utah carry numbers to actually break it and find themselves some serviceable time here.
Yeah, but McDowdy, they were very quick to be able to respawn back in, so Boise State are still going to be holding on to these P3 spawns. Crimson Gaming, they're going to be able to witness this all happening right in front of their face. And in Boise State, they're still spawning in because they're still having players that are just outside of the lobby here, Alan. So this might not be the best place to be. I've seen a lot of teams get spawn trapped over here. Crimson Gaming doing a good job at least holding this from the front.
Yeah, great job from holding it from the front. And now as they will start to realize that 15 seconds is good, send 3 on rotation, keep 1 at hold. It's Quinn, who's apparently going to be the OBJ dedicated player. You've got a good look at some pretty open gunfights around the train yard. Now, granted, Perpsky and Practical are able to at least keep this contested, but it's not nearly as comfortable as you'd like, especially considering the spawns are still at old right now for Boise State. Utah spawning much more close in proximity. They'll have a better look at trying to get here with numbers. The question is, will they read where this hit is coming from? And the answer so far seems to be no, although Quinn with the double and Matt in the third. That's going to allow Justin to sneak in, and Crimson Gaming will actually win the spawns behind this 4th hardpoint.
Yeah, well, what a perfect time to end up losing the gunfight over at Old. To your point there, Boise State were still spawning in over by that Old hard point, so it was easy for Crimson Gaming to deduce that they had to end up flying over towards P4. They deal with the lurking members of Boise State, and now the 70-point lead is really starting to grow. Crimson Gaming doing a fantastic job at recognizing Boise State are coming through the middle of the map, and they're zoning them away.
Yeah, really good corrective setups here, I think, just generally from the Utes. And Utah are going to be up close to 100 points, and this is not a hard point that you want to go into needing time if you're Boise State. But look at the route from Quinn. 4 in a row, all the way in the back. He's going to have a free look at one of the AR positions to watch over this hill. And now as he turns his attention forward, a couple of pre-fire shots come through, and then Quinn gets a read on Perpsky in the doorway, only finds a one bullet to connect, but Justin picks up where he had left off. And as we open a 5th hardpoint, it's once again Utah in first.
Crimson Gaming spawning closer towards that statue. This should be an easy read of things, especially because gunfights are starting to ensue. Boise State are going to have quite literally an uphill battle to work their way from that warehouse side, but I love this call out from Practical. They completely pinch it from that River Road side, and that's going to upset Crimson Gaming setup.
Yeah, this is really solid from Utah, at least initially. You're still hold on to the favored side going to 1 for sure, but it just comes down to, will you be able to get around the back? You can kind of see Practical's got his head in a swivel, knowing that, okay, these guys are coming from pinches literally all the time. So let's just make sure I'm not getting flanked on. Decent chance to keep this within reasonable terms for Boise State, but you got to win this rotation coming up the next. And a good kill off screen from Perpsky actually allows him a chance maybe to get around the back. The fight still lingering largely over the middle of the map, though, and his hat trick will soak up the scrap time. He will also find a kill on rotation, but the problem is the spawns are still good for Utah, and as they win that gunfight onto McDowdy deep over towards the side staircase, that's going to even more so reinforce this hill for the Crimson Gaming squad.
And this is when P1 can absolutely turn into a money hill. Again, this P1, comparatively to the rest that we have inside the map set for Vanguard, is not your traditional P1 J-Mac. Nice shots through the stained glass. They have to favor for the reload, but Matt's right behind them for some good assistance. Boise State will be able to break in with about 30 seconds remaining, but they're not going to be able to keep their numbers here for too much longer. And this comes down to the question, do you continuously try to flood in numbers towards this? Because Crimson Gaming, they can keep throwing numbers at it, considering that they have closer spawns, while also taking a look at Maddie on the mini-map, trying to hold on to that rotation going into next.
Yeah, it really feels like for Utah, after the 30-second mark is come and gone, they're just happy to play 3v question mark on the OBJ. They'll send that 4th player to go rogue, hit a bit of a mini pinch, or just get to rotation early, and it's working out nicely for them at the moment, just simply due to the fact that your objective player in Quinn, who's largely trusted to lock down the back 10 seconds, he's 20 and 13 with a minute 13 on the clock for the objective. So you're getting great participation from your SMG line, and it's allowing a chance for these early Utah members to just make a rotation over through a longer route, maybe try to win those spawns. But decent read and recovery moment once again from Boise State. Have to respond to this hit. Hattrick able to find himself 3. There's the 4th. One more from the top ropes. Can't find that, but his teammates will be able to collect the 4th and final kill as Boise State will plant themselves in mailroom.
Okay, we're starting to see a little bit of resurgence coming through from Boise State, able to break back in towards P2, but then it comes to the question of the rotation. 20 seconds remaining, and to your point there earlier with this Crimson Gaming roster, when it comes down to that 20-second mark, they're going to end up setting 2 players to try to battle over for the scrap time, while they still end up having Maddie try to hold on to that rotation over towards New. Boise State looking to do a little bit of the same. They win the rotation gunfights across this main street. Nice shots from McDowdy, getting kill on number 11 is under pressure from behind. They'll go down, but the pressure is still on. Boise State should have numbers sitting around this hard point, but it gets swiftly dealt with by Crimson Gaming, who will be here for the initial time.
And this is something that at least I look forward to when you are starting to see something being contested. How quickly can you get numbers over to get good help? And so far, in every moment that we've seen Utah pressured, they've been able to provide a really swift rotation to pick up where exactly the hit's coming from Boise State. Can they do it once more, though? Because now the Broncos are starting to threaten from the front. Good kills coming through, keeps things evenly traded. Last member in is McDowdy. Hattrick trying to come to help out. And as McDowdy finds the kill, Hattrick will watch something else. Maybe try to make sure that the Utes are contested off of their favorable spawns. Stun will just barely miss. Hattrick slipping the net for a touch. And that allows enough time for Practical to help out for the kills. The Broncos will once again win this hard point.
They will win this hard point, but they're still down by a whole hard point shift. So when you think about the rotation from 3 to 4, you have to go across the entirety of the map. Keep your eyes out for Hattrick. They're going to be that player that's going to be clearing out the backside of the warehouse. Glide Bomb's going to get called in here for Quinn, and they're actually going to spot out Hattrick over by this boathouse. So that's a great call out for the rest of the team of the Utes to be able to watch.
But McDowdy able to help out. Regen will be here. Matt in the back, also gunned. That should be spawns flipped, and it is. closely. Still spawning is Quinn just over by the train platform. So now you turn your attention to the back. And J-Mac on 4 is just able to do that in time. More Broncos members trying to fly on in towards the hard point, but largely they're not able to find too much when it comes to not just kills, but also hard point pressure on the same breath. So back and forth we go. Spawn still good for Boise State, but time is starting to tick against them here. 30 seconds of the hard point, and every second that goes the way of Crimson Gaming is a bad second for Boise State.
Yeah, hey, that leader's advantage is really starting to sink on in now, isn't it? 222 and ticking on up to the 144 of Boise State. And then you go and focus back over towards that P5. Again, not necessarily a hill that you want to look at and say, hey, I need time off of this, because this is a very open hill. And Crimson Gaming are just slaying out on all corners of Berlin currently.
Second rotation, better than the first. But the problem is the fact that for Utah, they're still, like you mentioned, holding a very steep advantage on the scoreboard, and there is a variety of ways you can put this game to bed. Don't necessarily have to focus it here. You could really just play passive and say, all right, just don't let anybody through. Let's just hold this left side of the map. But 4 for 1, Broncos, you've got to go. You got to start making your way across, but they kind of hold their ground. That maybe a little bit of a passive 4-step will allow Utah a chance to hold on to their spawns and come back to recontest, and as they do, it's another 4 for 1 trade, this time favoring Utah, and that very well may mean the game.
Yeah, it very much so could be just done and dusted here. All of Boise State spawning in behind that warehouse, and it's just the awaiting arms of Crimson Gaming holding these angles. They're dealing with them on all fronts, but here comes the flood from the front. Can anybody deal with Maddie on the point itself? Surely not, as the crosses are going to be held. The Utes, especially through that first opening set of rotations, just were simply undeniable. Able to get so much time off of so many different rotations. And that immediately answers the question of which we had. Is this the 4-player roster for Utah that we were going to be expecting last season? The slay-heavy Crimson Gaming roster definitely came to play in that first map.
Oh, for sure. And, you know, the most impressive moment of it, I think, largely just comes down to what Quinn was doing in that first rotation. It was kind of a slow start for him, and I was like, all right, is this going to be what we really need here for Utah? Like, are we going to be able to step things back up, especially considering that he was playing that default, I'm going to be inside the hill. But then we got into that second rotation, and when he started hitting scrap time as an individual, winning the gunfights and locking down 10 to 15 seconds time and time again, there's a lot of trust that comes with that role, and Quinn absolutely handled it very well, helping aid this Utah team into a very early lead that would just become too insurmountable. On the flip side, though, just because, let's be candid, you know, we're trying to play both sides of the coin here early on. For Boise State, yeah, you're down 100 plus after the first rotation, but you're able to bring it within 80, 75 there near the end of the second rotation. The corrections are being made, but generally speaking, when you're the team breaking, it felt like they were only looking at, we need to break the hard point. There wasn't a lot of action after they won that fight to look towards what was coming up next in my mind.
Yeah, oh, no, you're absolutely right. That's the exact point that I was going to bring up, Alan. You said it so wonderfully during that fifth and final hill that when you have the step one of the multi-step process of having to break the hill, breaking the hill is that first step. But then the second and third step is then pushing that line of scrimmage that much further. That passive setup after you get that break just simply cannot happen. Once you end up getting those kills, you have to continue to lay on the pressure, knowing that at least if you can go 1 for 1, 2 for 2, so on and so forth, while you still have your OBJ player inside the hard point itself, that'll continuously keep the enemy team that you just broke inside that hill spawning further out, and then you spawning a lot closer towards the hard point, reinforcing it soon after. It's just that little bit of passiveness that we ended up seeing a handful of times from Boise State that just simply cannot happen in future hardpoints.
How about practical, though? 360 and a half damage per hill. I don't know what that statistic really means, but it was a lot higher than the other one, so I'll take that as a good sign. That's definitely interesting because we haven't really had time to look at scoreboards too often, but I would be interested to see more of that statistic, I think, just going forward, because I think it's going to tell a very interesting tell as we go down the road. But that said, one of the things we talked about, Boise State, search and destroy-wise, that was really their strength going through last year. I mean, it's hard to really kind of frame it up for, you know, a certainty just because they just barely missed out on the top cut after the first stage last year. They get to the bottom cut, and they were just clearly better than everybody else there. It was 3-0s pretty much from start to finish. However, you look at some of the matchups that they played versus other good teams in the West last year, and their search and destroy would either be the map that they would steal away from those teams, or they would at least keep those series close by playing well in search. So, that said, copy-paste what they need to do here versus Utah?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, search and destroy, you know me, Alan. I think that search and destroy is the best game mode to have as your bread and butter, because then it'll flip the narrative that you just have to be able to take away one respawn. Again, because control is unplayable at this state, you got to be able to take at least a hard point off of this University of Utah roster. That being said, hopping in towards the search and destroy, to your point earlier, there's something to be said about being the best of the bottom cut teams towards the end of Cold War, given that even when you were facing against those top teams, you were coming within about one, averaging maybe a 3-round outlier at most, losing your search and destroys. That is big time money right there, to be able to rely on that search and destroy, having those good fundamentals, that blind trust, if you will, to always watch each other's crosses, to always make sure that those hits are very so potent. And that's going to be quite telling, especially going in towards Tuscan search and destroy, where all of which I just said gets heightened to a certain degree. Fast plants over at A. You have to understand that if you don't have your AR at least overlooking that P1 side and having that cross from top nest looking through the middle of the map, things can go awry pretty darn quickly. And then there also comes down to the breaks when you're trying to retake the bomb site. If you're just all willy-nilly, just kind of throwing yourself at each one of these different corners of the map, well, you're going to get gunned pretty easily in a post-plant situation. This is what I've come to almost want to see for this Boise State. Is this going to be as strong as a search and destroy team here on Vanguard of what we got at Cold War?
14-5 last year during the Cold War year, including a very key Map 5 win versus Grand Canyon in the first stage. Also helped them get over Loyola Marymount in their regional qualifiers before they would eventually fall to the very good Arizona State Maroon team in the playoffs. So, that said, Boise State, this is your strength. On the other front, I know we've preached a lot about what Boise State should be bringing to the table. Another look here at Crimson Gaming, because based on what I saw there in that first hard point, this team's going to mean some serious business. And this is a very difficult division, by the way. Arizona State's in this division. Oregon's in this division. Grand Canyon's still in this division, amongst many more. This is a very tough opening stage for a lot of these teams. So no easy win, or pardon me, no win you feel like will be easy. But as Maddie finds first blood, it does get responded to. Bomb looking to go over towards A. And it looks like Quinn actually wants to try to chase down this kill, and he will find Perp, who is already damaged up.
You got to respect that chase, especially being in a 3v3, forcing out the numbers advantage. Still not favoring for this plan. I mean, you have ample time left to play, but with all that time left, Practical actually hits it all the way from the fountain alleyway, forcing out a 2v2.
Practical still worried about what's coming over towards the fountain side. Has the luxury just to sit here and wait for a plant, honestly. He's technically on the flank of both bomb sites, and as the bomb rotates, it's hat-trick mid-map, essentially in a position to do something similar. Timing here is going to be everything. And I believe Quinn has seen him, but it doesn't make a difference. Hat-trick still turns, finds the kill. J-Mac now last one left for a 1v2. Not a lot of time to play with, but he will get the luxury of picking up the bomb and an MP40. Can he hear this player underneath him? Does not seem to. Still gets a snapper off, but misses the first couple of bullets. And with that, Boise State take the first defense.
It's that little bit of hesitation for me, Alan. That little bit of hesitation chasing that kill over by the tree outside of church, and then not favoring for the plant just gave Practical a decent amount of time. Just hit it from the west side of ruins, and then being able to find one player in the back. That goes back to the tried and true strategy. You know, everybody has a plan, so you got punched in the face. And once that trade ended up coming through for Boise State, I thought, well, let's go ahead and rotate. But hat-trick is not an easy kill to be able to lock down, so it may seem. Practical for 3 in that round, 2 away from being able to get some streaks. Here comes a fast 8 over towards A.
McDowdy also gets first blood. That's right over the middle of the map. Hat-trick moving in to take that position away. Nade comes through for Quinn as he secures the kill, but not until after the plant comes out. And my goodness, the beam from Quinn nearly reduces McDowdy to nothing, but the bomb still gets planted, and we have a 3v2 setup favoring Boise State.
Player number 4 on the minimap might be the player to watch out for. Justin off screen is going to be able to take down Perpsky. So now it's going to be a 1v2 for McDowdy in clutch situation up top, but Justin just reads it perfectly. Well played out from Justin again, just being able to read the room, if you will, through the middle of the map, knowing that McDowdy was up there after they ended up at least finding that kill all the way across the church side, finds that retake ever so wonderfully, and the outplay as well, knowing that that was going to be the clutch position, as we know so many different players to be able to sit in for a post-plant situation to guarantee them around evening things up one apiece.
Yeah, I mean, it's exploiting the long play from Justin in the first place, right? The fact that you called it, he gets around the back. And at that point, it looked like Boise State was essentially trying to do the same thing, trying to push hat-trick in the mid-map, and it just never really amounted to too much. So, now we go into round 3. uncharacteristically having seen back-to-back defenses win on Tuscan Surge. It's not often you could say that.
Right.
But the retakes so far have been solid. Smoke does not really cover as much as I think it was intended to. Quinn still gets another nade off, though. That will push back the Boise State defenders and allows Quinn a chance to play over this U-Haul.
Still not favoring to go for that plan, again, knowing that they're going to players over by that tree side. But after Matt does take down McDowdy, that's going to be on the top side of Church, over by those sandbags. It's going to be the plant that comes through. Perpsky is able to find J-Mac, and now Boise State have numbers for a retake.
Good gunfight wins from Perpsky on the outside. He doubles up. That had to have been a transfer. Practical number 5 in blue is clearing out the back. The same is being done by Hattrick over the middle of the map, and Justin, who's trying to see if anyone's defusing, will eventually get here, takes a couple of shots, not going to find the kill, runs into Practical instead, who will allow him to meet his maker. Practical 4-1, Perpsky 3 in a row, and that'll be Boise State winning another defense. My goodness.
Yeah, again, very uncharacteristic for Tuscan Search to destroy, especially for the amount that you and I have watched and casted over to see 3 rounds in and all in defensive favor. Even when the bomb is planted, just post plants just seemingly cannot be held. And what's been breaking it up time and time again are players just slipping the net, getting to the back over by that fountain alleyway, over by the ruins, and catching 1, if not 2 players by surprise. Now, it also definitely helps when Perpsky, even off screen, is able to find a transfer kill across P1 for sure, but when you have a numbers advantage like that, there's no reason to continue to push on forward. That you just have to be able to play your position. We'll have to see if teams can adapt going forward. Perpsky going to cook up this nade as we are getting a rinse, wash, repeat of Boise State's previous offense. Going to go for this quick plant here today.
And this will be interesting because this post-plant setup is largely just going to be focused towards the field side. Up top, McDowdy once again. Trying to play through Nest. Who is going to be the first one to make a move here? Do you even have any utility to try to get forward? Justin's just going to run right up. Maddie helping him. And boy, that's a huge kill. But there's still contenders for the Broncos in the back. And then one of them being Perpsky. He's able to eliminate the long flank and then turns his attention forward. That's good for a 5th kill in a row. He's got a glide bomb. Technically speaking, he could call this in and win the round with that. But Maddie catches him too soon. And plenty of time for a defuse. Retake still looking solid for both teams. And at a certain point, I got to stop being surprised at the defensive retakes and more appalled that we're not getting solid post-plant setups from the offense.
And it was starting to look pretty darn good, right? But it comes down to that one push that came through from the help to be able to take down the player in top nest for me personally. If that player does not stay alive, that opens the floodgates from so many different avenues to be able to push through in the backside of Ruins. I mean, yeah, there was a trade that ended up coming through from the player that was playing on the west side of the Ruins, but even still, it's that one player that needs to be in that win condition spot constantly. It needs to be further reinforced in a post-plant situation if you want to guarantee yourself a round. Crimson Gaming off another offense. Quinn, we know that they're never too comfortable to be able to go for this very quick plant. They're going to continue to clear this out. The smoke has embellished itself, but Perpsky will still find first blood on that monument.
Perpsky is dominating on this side of the map. Granted, he does get traded, but it's allowing Boise State to overwhelm the middle, at least by numbers. Action would start to tell us otherwise, though, as Quinn's able to find Practical. Big shutdown there. And we go 3v2. Quinn still not feeling confident enough to plant. Now we'll consider it, and this is a different post-plant situation. He's going to be planting this actually for the players likely sitting out towards field. Not sure if you're going to be able to see that from top nest. So with that, Maddie's going to kind of change his angle and just make sure there's not a long flank happening.
Yeah, knowing that you got to clear out your backside first. Some shots going into Maddie up on the top side of nest. That's going to be courtesy of Hattrick. And now McDowdy will start clearing out the backside. We'll have J-Mac on a head glitch. Yep. Tough gunfight.
Love this post-plan adjustment from Utah. Hattrick, though. Oh, hold on a second. Gets the pistol off. He had shots coming into him from Matt up top. He knows where he's at. The question is, does he know where the bomb is? Because he could go prone here and potentially just defuse, but through the shutters, Matt will toggle. Now the sound cue. Not enough ammunition, and the AR has to go to the pistol, and as he does, Matt will confirm the kill no problem as he was still staying fully stood up.
I think the question would still reside for itself. I mean, in that post play, okay, yeah, you would be able to see it. Just somebody trying to. Well, if you go prone, actually, you could probably
if he goes prone and hugs the right, you don't see feet from there.
Yeah. Questionable decision as far as that plan is concerned, but, you know, when desperation starts to ensue and you're just trying to at least drop that rock, especially when comms are flying, as I'm sure that they were.
I don't know. Like, that looked predetermined, because the post-plant setup was not necessarily for mid-map. It was over towards Ruin side. That's why you had J-Mac playing an aggressive angle kind of over by the statue. This is almost the same spot. And look at the setup here for the post-plant. You've got passive AR sitting in the back of Perpsky. And for Practical, he can also just reinforce. But the problem is they don't find any kills outside. And now you're very vulnerable from the middle of the map, and Quinny will help us realize that.
Yeah, I mean, Crimson are really starting to feel themselves. Just quick kills coming through, though. Practical will service themselves. Surely he's going to be able to find the second. Needs to be a full-on 1v4. The turn and around. Okay, Practical, we see you. Okay. Alrighty then.
See, that's the thing. You know, that's unbelievable, by the way, for Practical, just mechanically speaking. I don't want to take anything away from that by transitioning the conversation, but you put your post plant there. If you're not feeling good about that hold up top nest, that's the best place you can put it for finesse around U-Haul like that. Because you've got an AR who can watch you long, and then your SMG who plants could just kind of float around, and that's a 1v3 from Practical to tie us back up at 3. We started all defense, and now all of a sudden it's offense for offense.
Yeah, and let's be candid here, too. The post-plant situation up in top nest has not been stellar for either of these two teams, so we'd love to see that adaptation. And how about this call out from the Utes? Just a 3-man hit out from comms. Practical stood absolutely no chance, and Prepsky will try to manage this, or salvage it, I should say, with a glide bomb, but McDowdy goes off the back end of it.
Oh, clean shots, though, from Perp. Hat-trick deep inside of his own spawn. Will maybe just have to wait for a plant to come through. You should know that between you and Perpsky, that's going to be where everybody is, but a set nade from Justin is able to reduce Perpsky to nothing, and it all falls onto Hat-trick. 1v3. MP40 in hand is going to be the weapon that he's going to have to try to get this done with. Sees Quinn, at least you would assume he does. Not a gunfight that you really want to take at that range with an MP40. But he's going to be forced to have to choose what angle to take this gunfight at. And now help has arrived. Topside platform. You've got Matt waiting. And Quinn is just playing with him. Playing with his food at the moment. Hello. No problems. I love the gut check call for Crimson to hit over towards the B side for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you ended up having at least the bomb carrier just throw all of their nades, their utility over towards that A lane, if you will, and that caused enough ruckus and distraction. I mean, who would ever expect it until you see it for the first time that 3 players are just going to come bull rushing through that door? Just, you know, 1 Kool-Aid man is enough, but when you got full 3 Kool-Aid men just busting through that door, yeah, Practical stood absolutely no chance when that hit ended up coming all the way through on the opposite side of comms. Definitely love that call coming through from Crimson. Now Justin finds themselves on 3 in a row, up to 7 and 5. And Boise State going for a little bit more passive look on this offense, going to be playing for the information, but more importantly for Practical, who's going to get down here by the well, maybe to find some information, but Crimson Gaming, again, feeling themselves just push it through P1, find 2 kills. This
little speed chess game that we're getting right here, again, just builds a lot of favor and praise towards Utah. I mean, we saw what Boise State was trying to do last offense. It was the same thing they were doing here, where you try to overwhelm the field side, maybe get a plant off in the back, and then you play your post plant around ruins. This time it's Utah saying, nope, J-Mac's going to pull out an STG. We're going to get ARs planted up top, around the backside monuments, over towards trees, and just make sure you never get the field in your control. They have never at any point found good control of mid-map, have Boise State. Crimson are starting to very quickly realize that. That's why you get the heavy hit towards B on offense. It's why you get the heavy defensive stack towards the outside of A. It's really good reads, really good adjustments. I've been impressed so far. Yeah, me too. Quinn up at 7 and 6, 7 and 5 here for Justin, still on that 3 straight. Boise State need to amount something for the defense here, and again, it's going to be Practical. It's going to end up absolutely slipping the net. Do they find that kill off screen? They're going to be able to get it eventually, but a big numbers advantage here early. Yeah, great stuff. Perpsky locking things down in the lane. Quinn has to go for a 1v4. Tallies 1 through the doorway. Turns. Pre-fire. Not going to find the shots. Has to reset. Oh, boy. It is cat and mouse game through church, and Boise State's numbers would eventually have overwhelmed, and a obviously must-win round comes through very cleanly at that for Boise State. Yeah, I mean, every round going forward off of that previous is going to be must-win for them, considering that the Utes are just 1 round away from taking a 2-0 series lead here in our best of 5 for our West Division A match. Would put them 1-0, considering that they had a reschedule earlier on in the day. But for Boise State, again, Perpsky is just undeniable across that lane, considering that they'll get there first. But it has to be a question for their offense, post plants and all. They're going to go for a more passive look. Now, they're going to go back to their round 1 strategy here, Shift. Going to have Practical try to get onto this A-bomb site early. But again, it's just Justin hits it very quickly, finds that first kill. Yeah. There is at least a trade. Bomb down. Perpsky, good look at Justin, but can't get back over the top of the monument. Justin now going to be overwhelmed, as that's great help for McDowdy. Hatrick also getting in the mix as he makes safe the long flank from Quinn. Just down to Matt, nothing to find mid-map. And Boise State respond with 2 in a row, looking for their third to potentially steal away this Search and Destroy.
And it would be just that. It would just be just stealing it away because a few rounds ago, just something had awakened to the beasts of Crimson Gaming as they'd just been shrieking across the entirety of the map, just hard-hitting everything very, very quickly. And Boise State just were not necessarily ready for it, but I love that mid-round adjustment, just recognizing, hey, they got aggressive here. There's no way that the rest of them are playing passive given how fast they ended up hitting over towards that A site defensively. And the rest of them are going to be lurking towards the middle of the map. The team shots are absolutely beautiful. That's going to come down to the Utes here on offense. Nades cooked up. This is going to be an A committal. That's a lot of grenades coming over towards A, but Boise State, nowhere really to be found. Got practical on the flank again.
They're playing for Nest post-plant here. Everyone's just staying passive. You can make sure that the flank stays safe, and if you need help up top at Nest, you can get it from a multitude of sources. The bomb has not been planted yet. Huge kill from J-Mac. That opens up the backside of the map, and now a lot of pressure onto Practical. He's going to have to get a couple of kills here. As he turns off screen, he does find Maddie. Wait a second. Can he get the regen off? He's not going to have any help, but he's not going to need it. Crimson have not committed to trying to plant, and Hatrick nearly gets gifted a kill in front of him. Quinn wins it. Long-range shots are Practical. Another 1v3 has been queued up for him. Shot from behind. Automaton picked up and then used. Quinn from the front. Can he get the SMG back from the sprint to fire? No, not the case, and Utah will not see this surge go astray. They win the round 11 and go up 2-0 in the series.
Yeah, just a little bit of hesitation there at the end, especially for Practical over on that flank, whether or not they needed to come back over towards that P1 side, try to help things out, or should they just push the flank all the way through? I mean, especially here on Tuscan, if everybody's just kind of having a big old powwow over by that P1 side, it's a very hard thing to be able to gauge whether or not you need to end up committing towards that flank or end up going all the way back and try to clear out the rest of that A bomb site. Because to your point there, Alan, it was a nest setup there at the end. If the bomb ended up going down, some kills obviously were quickly changing that ended up format, but this is what it comes down to be for Search and Destroy on a game like Vanguard, where the pace is set up so fast, the time to kill even faster. You got to be able to make those gut check calls very, very quickly on the fly.
Gotta say, I love that we can see the minimap from start to finish on Search, by the way. It's just like, I'm starting to really realize why the things that we're seeing are starting to happen. Just small side personal note for me. But Utah, nothing side or personalized about what's happened here, because this is a full team effort, man, and it is refreshing to see. I know that the Crimson Gaming alums are very happy to see this occur. Not to sit there and say that Boise State should be a team that you beat, but this is a contested matchup, one that'll be evidently important to what happens through stage one, and being able to build a huge lead on the Berlin hardpoint, see that go to a 250-160, and then seeing all of the core four members here performing at an even level through a 6-5 round 11 save here on the Search and Destroy is definitely encouraging. I mean, on the other side, there's great stuff here from Boise State to relate to, but at the end of the day, this one's going to hurt if you walk away this week one an 0-2 tally to start your first stage.
Yeah, definitely not where you want to be, especially because you were framing it up so wonderfully before we ended up hopping into map number 2 during that first round. I mean, this is a juggernaut of a group. I mean, especially with,
for sure.
ASU. I mean, Grand Canyon Esports is in here as well. New Mexico State, as we were saying earlier, did beat Boise State in their first matchup on the day. Be able to start off 0-2, not where you want to be. Definitely have to be on the bounce back here. But if you're a fan of this Crimson Gaming squad, you are absolutely singing their praises, because being able to start off 1-0 and as decisive as certain things have looked in that Search and Destroy and on that Berlin hardpoint, this is quite promising when they start to match up against top teams.
It'll be interesting, but we still have to get through this series. Let's not bite off more than we can chew here on the test. We'll send things to a brief intermission. When we come back, we'll be looking at Gavutu for the third map hardpoint right on the backside. Don't go too far. Moment for us to catch ourselves up as we get ready to go for map number 3. Boise State, they've been putting up a bit of a fight, but they cannot find a way to edge out this Utah Crimson Gaming team, who have looked really solid and sound from start to finish. Really good stuff with this new group of 4. My whole shift with Be Proper. 250-160, 6-5, the first 2 maps. And now we've got Gavutu to get going on here for map number 3. If there were to be a reverse sweep, which, you know, I hate to say it's much needed here for Boise State, but if you want to try to keep yourself in the running for a top 3 spot in this first stage in the Western divisions, you kind of need to beat Utah here, because there are still Colorado, Boulder, Oregon, Arizona State, which are likely going to be the presumed top 3 from this division. So you're going to have to go through Gavutu, Bocage, and Berlin to do that. I don't know. It's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow. How are you feeling about this upcoming, at least first map in the potential next 3 here for us proper?
Well, hey, look, if we just got ourselves a reverse sweep in the previous series and we're following the script off of the dress rehearsal, surely we're going to see another one here, right? Now, all jokes aside, this one's going to be quite difficult. Given just how that opening of Berlin had started for Crimson Gaming, they were just undeniable. Through that opening first set of hills, always focusing on the rotation, winning rotationary gunfights, starting scrapping to initial, they were playing very sound and fundamental hardpoint. And to be able to take Boise State to around 11 and still close out that search and destroy, well, you got to be shaking in your boots now for Boise State, given that that was supposed to be their given game mode, their better game mode. But the velocity that Utah are playing with right now, it's going to be scary. We always talk about it when it comes down to Gavitu, on how SMGs might just be able to play here on this map. It is a very open map. This is going to be where you're going to end up relying on for your ARs, whether it's an STG or an Automaton, to be able to really lock down these lanes and not allow Justin to get up in your face. If Justin continues to go AWOL and Quinn is able to just finesse on a hard point like what we saw from Berlin, then you know the ARs are not able to lock down these lanes, and you know that they're not able to uphold to the strengths of which Crimson Gaming are playing with currently.
Oof. But the thing is, hey, we really did praise Crimson Gaming for how avid they were on not just hitting scrap time, but in certain moments going 3v1, right? Or 1v3 even, when you talk about Quinn hitting scrap time, or on the other side, like you mentioned, Justin kind of hitting those early rotations. Their focus has been really well split. Now, that has been, I think, the one key difference that Boise State have not been able to show us as of yet, but I think are showing potential to be able to do that, because there have been great moments for them. They're finding good, favorable kill feeds. They're just not turning it into, oh, wait, there's 4 down. What do we do here now? Like, it's just, they're hitting step 1 of their success radar completely, including this off the rip. But what do you do from here? What is your immediate next setup now that you went 3 for 1?
Yeah, would love to see Hattrick push just a little bit closer towards that LST ship. And again, it's that little bit of hesitation. You end up getting yourself 3-4 dead, and now you're just quite literally fish in a barrel for Crimson Gaming to pick up all of these kills. Now you have to deal with J-Mac on the top of LST ship, though Perpsky is putting up a massive argument inside of P1. And of course, we'll go down. I'll take an automatic weapon over a pistol any day of the week, but that little bit of hesitation allowed Crimson Gaming to get in the middle of the map all a little bit too easily.
The focus goes over to ship. And as Quinn and Justin running the double SMGs clean up, again, the war on 2 fronts, things start to get a bit dangerous here for Boise State. They do have one player trying to slip through mid-map. I was practical, but to say maybe he could find an angle to get J-Mac off the hard pump, but that's not the case. And the Broncos are just standing still, it feels like. They're still waiting for gunfights, and as they find them, now J-Mac has to get activated. First kill comes his way, trying to slip around the tank and will be denied, and the patience pans out for the Broncos as they do break.
Yeah, good flood here, but again, they kind of just at a standstill. We would love to see another player go up towards Ring, but you're not fully understanding where the rest of Crimson Gaming are going to be yet. You just have to wait for the engagements to come to you, which they end up doing. And the Broncos are able to clean up a handful of kills, but still not pushing a little bit too farther forward to try to clean out the backside of these spawns. We're down to 15 seconds. This is when, especially on Gavitu, that you need to already be focusing on the rotation over towards New. Crimson Gaming locking down the center lane, but Boise State at least soaking up the rest of the scrap time will have a very nominal lead.
Yeah, and it's another one of those moments. We talked about this in Berlin, in the 5th hard point. You got a really good kill feed. You've got the hard point. The scrap time's coming up. You've got to start making some efforts to get around the back of the map.
Right.
And at the moment, Boise State are just kind of waiting to see if Practical can get around and maybe see if anyone's going to peek them mid-map. And boy, they do, actually. Hold on a second. That'll be enough to likely block the favorable spawns, but not fully win them. Although McDowdy does spawn up, so now it's just down to can you respond to the quick pace that the Crimson Gaming Utes are going to have as they spawn backside P5. And it looks like Boise State was not quite ready for where they spawned up at, and that will lead to Crimson Gaming getting the rebreak.
Yeah, it's that point that you did not fully block out the closer spawns that happened down over by the docks, and that allowed Crimson Gaming to resurface themselves, though it's a very hard spawn to read, given that Boise State just completely cleared out the hard point with being able to find those engagements. Down in 15 seconds, and if you're Boise State, you just want to start locking things down, not always looking for these exit kills, but favoring down towards the rotation, because Maddie is going to have some help down here with Quinn to try to rotate up towards this arch rock and try to get in the back before.
Perp's not zoning this. The only player really zoning right now is Hattrick, and he's got to watch 2 things at the same time. It's all about timing. That stun is a great check, though. That will turn Hat-Trick to make sure he is responsible for this jungle push alongside of his teammates, and the kills are coming through. Spawns are still good. One more player on the back, though, is Justin. He will find a kill, and that will actually flip a couple of Boise State members out. Now it's just down to can you win the gunfights on the hard point, and the answer will be no. Practical has been asked a number of times to clutch up in those key situations, and that's just asking too much when you're dealing with 3 Utah members.
Yeah, hard to snap onto 3 players in succession, especially when you're going to get dropped to the floor very quickly with the time to kill in Vanguard. But you can see for the Broncos, I mean, they're not done hitting this, and this could be quite dangerous, Shift, if you're trying to play for the scrap time here at 4, given that you have to rotate all the way over, and I like that call. You can see on the minimap, the rest of the players are going to just try to get themselves back over towards these customs buildings. Yeah, Perpsky's going to go down all the way over, but they should spawn up with the rest of their team for 5.
Got a hold here, though. Good first kill from Hat-Trick. There's nobody watching the top side of the map. Practical's going to try to pick that up off screen. He's 1 in blue. And gunfights now individually starting to echo out across Gavatu. And as Maddie wins one, Utah will say, okay, that's going to be our lane of entry. J-Mac will still contest the south part of the map, but Perpsky, as he spawns up, needs to be responsible to help out Practical, and he's just not. There's just a war on 2 fronts, and Boise State just look a little bit amiss here when it comes to who's watching what, and Utah are feasting off the opportunity. That's J-Mac for 3, single-handedly pulling all the Broncos' focus while the rest of Crimson Gaming rotates around the back, and Utah have once again broken a hard point and and a set of spawns.
Yeah, they're feasting off those unforced errors coming out of Boise State. Again, making sure that they're trying to focus on 2 different lanes. It was only 1 player that was over by that P3 side, Alan, and well, because of that, with Boise State not fully focused on where the rest of the hit was coming from the middle of the map and the LST shift, they get eaten alive. At the end of this first set of hills, it's going to be a very big lead. I'm having PTSD from that Berlin hardpoint early.
Yeah, it's just small things here or there. And small things can lead to major implications in a game like Vanguard with how fast it is. So now 155-95. Utah all over this hard point. And just no chance for Practical against the Automaton on a heady. It's not going to happen. Justin now tallying up 3, looking for potentially streaks to be the nail in the coffin here for a 3-0 for Utah. They were 3-0'd by Boise State last year in the early season. But this new squad of 4 is looking mighty fine.
Yeah, they sure are. Again, this is the immediate consideration. Is this the roster that we were supposed to get from the Utes just last season that we did not get to witness in Cold War? The slay-heavy team that we got to witness on that Berlin hardpoint is still existing here. Justin is 16-8, able to find number 6 in a row as well. That's going to be full streaks for them. J-Mac finessing their life with the SCG on the top side of LST. Going to throw an elbow, tries a YY reload to cancel the animation. They'll go down, but the damage has certainly been done. Crimson Gaming, again, from 1 to 2, just great at cycling players out to make sure that they have top LST in their favor.
Quinn showcasing some unreal movement.
It's twisted.
Absolutely twisted, and it pans out beautifully. Good help coming through from Justin as he will be credited with the double, and Crimson Gaming will go over the 200-point mark unless there's a heroic play in hand for Practical. It's just been such a tall ask for the SMGs at Boise State. Oh my goodness! What sensitivity is Quiddy playing on?
Put on that Justin Pistachio, that very high sensitivity, just turning and burning on everything that they could possibly witness for themselves.
Wait,
and
Justin
keep in mind,
plays on high sense?
I don't know. I'm just kind of bringing Justin Pistachio into the mix here. But Quinn, again, remember that's their OBJ player, has about 2 minutes of hardpoint time shift, and is still finding kills and is still keeping
Unreal.
it mixy within the hill. 13 and 13, yeah. But would you have an OBJ player of Quinn's caliber just able to convert so many kills and go 2 for 1 inside the hardpoint itself? That's the OBJ player I want on my team. Now we focus the rotation going over towards 3. The Utes still have these closer spawns, but it's going to be Perpsky in for the initial time.
Every kill is a big kill here for Boise State. Not only because you're in the hard point, but you have to feel like this should be enough to try to influence these spawns. Glide bomb comes down. It will find the elimination. Utah still spawning relatively close. Not ideal, but still proximal enough. So Hat-Trick has to pick up as he plays over just on top of the truck. Shots to J-Mac, not going to connect. And Utah now have numbers to re-flood back into the hill. The players that are sitting top AA gun can do nothing. The STG starting to look like a major weapon once again as J-Mac, 22 and 14, beams somebody off the top of the wall heady and wants more. Crimson Gaming cannot win here, but they're going to get this scrap time, and you've already got Justin on rotation, number 8 in white. He does get turned away, and Boise State will use that to gain a little bit of breathing room.
a little bit of breathing room, but it's just a little bit of time that Crimson Gaming are going to need to close out this game. I mean, when they soak up the rest of this, they're going to put themselves at 238 to the 133. Quinn has with the net. Whoa! Able to fight all three. Of course, we'll end up being traded out, but the damage not done sufficiently enough. It did buy enough time for the rest of Crimson to push on forward.
That was okay. Some next level stuff, and now Matt on the break. Oh, man. If you're Oregon, Arizona State, or Colorado Boulder, you have now circled a new matchup on your schedule because Utah is looking for frickin' real. From top to bottom, start to finish. May not be the most convincing scorelines we'll see reported today, but Boise State is not an enemy that you want to overlook, and Utah definitely did not. Unbelievable.
Sorry, I still have my head in my hands. I mean, Quinn is just freaking twisted, man. I mean, again, the OBJ player with the submachine gun. I was ready to write up. It was like, this has to be Justin's map, and it certainly was. 25 and 14 for themselves. But I mean, like, again, I'm going to just lay into this narrative one more time. On Hardpoint specifically, if you have a player of Quinn's caliber who is just twisted as all get out, just finessing 3 different players at the same time, is able to find themselves a route to get into the back of radar and finds 3 kills like that? Yeah. Put them on your radar the rest of this division here in the West Conference, man. That is absolutely filthy stuff. You do not want to take the Utes for granted.
Yeah, I mean, look, out of all of the different divisions that we have, as we look back over the map set here quickly to kind of give you the recap of how this 3-0 happened, you know, looking at this Western Pool A, everyone's looking at Oregon, Colorado Boulder, Arizona State. Maybe not necessarily in that order, but Arizona State's looking filthy this year. They're probably going to be the number 1 out of this division. It'll probably be between them and Oregon in a lot of people's minds. But Colorado Boulder should still be good. Mexico State, you figure after their top 32 finish last year, they should still be decent. And, you know, hey, I still had Boise State circled on my radar just to be like, you know, who knows? All 4 are coming back. You know, they missed out getting knocked out in regional playoffs last year. The regional qualifiers not quite getting to the full postseason playoffs, but they look pretty solid in what was a pretty difficult Pacific Division last year. So now Boise State starts off 0-2. Utah, with the 3-0 win here, I think is all of a sudden just thrown their name in the ring for potentially sneaking into a top 3 position in this division, Division A of Pool. The Pool A of the Western Division. Goodness.
There was a lot of letters. There's a lot of words to be able to mutter what you just said, and I'm proud of you for just powering through that. But even still, yeah, I mean, let's just go ahead and say what it is. I mean, Utah are starting off 1-0 here. This is their very first matchup of College COD season 2022. But boy, did they end up stamping a big amount of statements for themselves, because to the point that you just brought up, Alan, as well, that Boise State is not necessarily a team that you could bat an eyelash at. I mean, we got to see some great spots from them as well. I mean, Perpsky and Practical really put in a really good effort across all 3 maps that we ended up seeing. It was almost a comeback there on that Berlin hardpoint during the second set of rotations, but the lead was just too far gone. This Utah roster, I mean, this is going to be a team that I'm going to continuously be on the lookout for. I hope we get more opportunities to be able to cast them, even if I'm not the one that's covering them as well. I just want to be able to watch more of this team continue to be on the come up, whatever their schedule may look like. I want to see them versus Arizona State. I want to see them versus GCU. I want to see them versus New Mexico State, because the Aggies might just be a very tough competitor for them as well. But again, that going forward, this Utah roster is definitely the one that I would assume was going to be the ones that we were going to expect in Cold War. They had their season cut short, but damn, are they going to come this season and play in Vanguard?
This is interesting. So I was kind of just going through and looking to see what the schedule looks like for Utah. They've got a bye to start off their next week, but then they play New Mexico State to finish off week 2. But week 3, they play both Arizona State and Oregon. That's going to be interesting. Definitely come back for week 3 if you're not going to come back tomorrow, which you're going to come back for tomorrow. I don't know why I would even suggest that you'd wait 2 weeks to come back and watch us again. That's going to do it here for the Bravo stream. Main stream, I believe, is still going on with Texas State and St. Edwards. That should be a great one. I can't wait to jump on in and watch that. And, of course, we'll be back tomorrow as we'll be digging on into the Northeast and Southeast regions. A lot of heavy hitters out there as well, so make sure you follow along right now if you already have not, both in the Bravo stream and then, of course, as we join ourselves back over on the main stream. On top of that, at College COD on Twitter, and then beyond that, Discord will get you into the Discord so you can keep up with all the latest stuff going on with the CCL in the 2022 year. Been a solid start, but that's just day 1 of week 1. We'll be back tomorrow for more. Until that point, make sure you guys keep holding it down. So long.